Everyone in that courtroom stood still when the verdict came down. Not guilty. A wave of gasps followed, mixed with applause from the defense bench and cold silence from the prosecution. I stood there in my tailored navy suit, my face unreadable. Inside, my heart hammered like a war drum. Daniel Price accused of murdering his wife, faking a home invasion and disposing of the body, was walking free. And I was the reason. I should have felt triumphant. After all, this case had made my name. I was the youngest defense attorney to ever win a full acquittal in a first-degree murder trial in New York in over a decade. Reporters crowded the courthouse steps. My inbox overflowed with offers. My firm was already talking bonuses and interviews, but all I could hear was the faint, desperate voice of his 10-year-old daughter, Mia, during a suppressed video testimony. My mummy was crying, and Daddy said she had to go be quiet forever. That footage had never made it to trial. It had been thrown out inadmissible. Lack of chain of custody, no verification on the source. I had argued for that myself. I had won that argument, and in doing so, I may have buried the truth. That night, I didn't celebrate. I sat alone in my condo, lights off, a half-empty glass of whiskey, sweating on the marble counter. The TV played the local news without sound. My face was up there, beaming under courtroom lights. I didn't feel proud. I felt hollow. The next morning, I received a single text message on my encrypted personal phone. Unknown number. She didn't deserve to die. He paid someone. Want the truth. Meet me at the pier. Midnight. I stared at the message for a long time. I should have deleted it. Should have blocked the number. Should have left well enough alone. But I didn't. That night, I drove to the docks alone. Fog rolled in off the water. The lights from the city behind me painted long shadows on the wood. I waited, unsure of who or what would show up, and then she appeared. Black hoodie, faded jeans, a voice like gravel wrapped in silk. "I'm Detective Erin Vega, suspended," she said, "for pushing too hard on a case your firm tried to bury." She handed me a manila folder, stained with coffee and rain. Inside were photos, surveillance shots, a burner phone record, a wire transfer, all pointing to a man I knew well. Myers, a private investigator hired by Daniel Price's defense team. "I followed the money," she said. Myers was paid to scrub evidence, and possibly pay someone off to do the actual killing. There's more, but I'm running out of time. My stomach clenched. Logan had been the star witness in our case. His testimony had dismantled the prosecution's timeline. He said he had proof Daniel was at a gas station during the time of the murder. The jury believed him. Hell, I had believed him. Or at least, I wanted to. Erin looked at me like she could see right through the expensive suit and polished courtroom mask. "You still think you won something?" I clenched the folder and said nothing. She slipped away into the night, leaving only a card with a safe deposit box number and a key taped to the back in my apartment. I locked the door, drew the curtains, and stared at the evidence again. I wasn't a cop. I wasn't a journalist. I was a lawyer, and my job was to protect my client. I had done that. But what if my client was the devil? And what if I had helped him escape? I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I took the key to a downtown bank. Inside the deposit box was a USB drive and a small black notebook. The notebook contained coded messages, but some were easy to decipher. Names, dates, a payment to a man nicknamed Crow, $15,000 wired the night before the murder, and the USB was worse. A recording grainy audio from a wiretap of Daniel Price arguing with a man. If she talks, we both go down. Handle it. The voice on the other end muttered something I couldn't make out. Then Daniel, again. She dies. Make it look like a break-in. No loose ends. I paused the audio. My hands shook. If this was real, I had helped a murderer walk. Free and a contract killer disappear. I paced my apartment, trying to think like a lawyer. Chain of custody, admissibility, motive for fabrication. But the real question haunted me deeper. Did I want justice now, or did I just want peace? Looked out at the city skyline, blinking in the morning haze. My career had just taken off. Fame, wealth, recognition. It was all mine now. But so was the guilt. I picked up the phone and called Logan Myers. "Hey champ," he said with his usual greasy cheer. "Heard you nailed the verdict. Drinks on." "Me. I need to see you. Today." He paused. "Everything all right?" "No," I said quietly. "I think we missed something." His voice changed. Tight. Controlled. "Where?" "Your office. 1 hour." I hung up. Whatever came next wouldn't be about winning. It would be about what it cost to lose the part of myself I wasn't sure I'd ever get back. Logan Myers' office was on the 3rd floor of a crumbling brick building wedged between a pawn shop and a vape store. Inside, it smelled like cheap coffee, gun oil, and desperation. The blinds were half drawn, casting thick lines of shadow across. A wall covered in surveillance photos and pinned documents. For someone who supposedly just dug into timelines, he kept a lot of secrets on display. He greeted me with a grin that never reached his eyes. "Eli Carter, the golden boy of courtroom drama. To what do I owe the honor?" I held up the folder Vega had given me. "You lied on the stand." His smile faded fast. "That's a hell of an accusation." "It's not an accusation. It's a warning. I have enough to reopen the case. Audio, money trails, surveillance. I'm not bluffing." Logan leaned back in his cracked leather chair and sighed. "You should have burned that folder the second you opened it. So it's real." I said. "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." He picked up a pen and spun it between his fingers, eyes never leaving mine. "You don't understand how deep this goes. Price didn't just kill his wife. He had help from people who don't like attention. The moment you poke that hornet's nest, you're not just ruining your career, you're marking yourself." "I already lost my soul," I said. "Might as well lose the rest." He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "That's a pretty speech for a man who sat silent while a murderer walked." I took a step closer. "How much did they pay you?" "Silence then," very softly, he said. "Enough." I slammed the USB onto his desk. "This has Price's voice, ordering the hit. You're in this. If I go down, you're coming with me." He stared at the drive for a long time. "You're not a crusader, Eli. You're a lawyer. You chose your side the moment you threw that child's statement out." I turned to leave. "Eli," he called after me, "whatever you do next, just make sure it's worth dying for." The air outside felt colder than it should have. I called Vega from a burner phone I bought on the way to the parking lot. She answered on the first ring. "I confronted Myers," I said. "He didn't deny anything. He's scared." "Good," she replied. "Because we're not done. There's someone else you need to meet." "Who?" "The man Price paid to clean up. His name's not Crow. That's a cover. But I have a location tonight. Warehouse District. Dock 17. I paused. "What if he runs?" "He won't," she said. "He owes me, and he wants out. That night, I wore black. I don't know why it wasn't for stealth. Maybe I was already mourning who I used to be. The warehouse loomed like a beast asleep in the dark. Its steel door groaned open just enough for me to slip in. Vega stood waiting, arms crossed, beside a figure hunched over a crate. "This is him?" I asked. "Name's Carter Wells, former Marine, dishonorably discharged, works odd jobs, mostly ones with no paperwork and high risk." Wells turned to me. His face was hard scars, broken nose, hollow eyes. "You're the lawyer," he said, "the one who let him walk." I defended my client. "Bullshit. You played the game and you won. But some games don't end at the buzzer." I stared at him. "Did you kill her?" "No," he said, flatly, "but I was supposed to." I tensed. "Explain." "I was hired to scare her, break in, make a mess, threaten her. Standard intimidation. But when I got there, she was already dead. Price set me up, made me the fall guy in case anything went wrong. He staged the scene, then sent me in to mess it up. He handed me a phone. I recorded my call with him. Thought I might need insurance. I played the audio. Price's voice, clear as glass. "You'll get the second half after the mess is done. Leave no prints. If anyone asks, you never saw her alive." I looked up at Vega. "This changes everything, does it?" She asked. "You still have to decide what to do with it." Back home, I couldn't sleep. Again, I poured whiskey but didn't drink it. I just stared at my reflection in the glass. The justice system wasn't broken. It worked exactly how it was designed to protect those who could afford people like me. I'd built my name on that system. Now it was suffocating me the next day. I went back to the DA's office. I walked into Assistant District Attorney Harper Nugent's office unannounced. She was the one I'd outmaneuvered during the trial. "Carter," she said, surprised, "you lost or just here to gloat?" "I have evidence," I said, "enough to reopen the Price case." She raised an eyebrow. "Are you serious?" I handed her the USB in the notebook. "I think I helped a killer walk free, and I'm not going to let that be the end of the story." She opened the folder, brows furrowing as she read. "Where did you get this? From someone who wants the truth more than protection." Nguyen closed the folder slowly. "You understand what this means?" "For you, yes," I said. "It means I stop being the kind of lawyer who wins no matter the cost." She nodded slowly. "Then let's make it right." I walked out of her office, feeling something strange. Not pride, not relief, just a little less dead inside. But something told me this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. Because Daniel Price wasn't going to let this slide. And if I wanted to fix what I broke, I'd have to face him again. Only this time, it wouldn't be in a courtroom. The news broke 2 days later. District Attorney to reopen Price case after new evidence surfaces. They didn't name me, not yet, but my fingerprints were all over it. Reporters camped outside my firm. My boss called me into his office and shut the door so hard the windows shook. "What the hell have you done, Eli?" "I did the right thing." He threw a copy of the Times across the table. "You blew up our biggest case. Clients are pulling out. Do you know how much we invested in your career?" I didn't answer. He leaned in, eyes cold. "You were on your way to partner. Now you're poison." I took my nameplate off the desk before he could ask. By that afternoon, my face was on the news, not as a rising star anymore, Not as a courtroom hero, as a man who might have defended a murderer and then tried to fix it too late. And Daniel Price. He wasn't hiding. His lawyers made a public statement. Denied everything. Claimed a witch hunt, media bias, political sabotage. Called me a disgruntled ex-employee with a vendetta. But then something strange happened. Mia, the daughter, disappeared. I saw it first in a missing child bulletin buried on a neighborhood message board. I called Vega immediately. She's gone. I said, Mia's missing. There was silence on the line. Then her voice, tight. He's cleaning up loose ends. She's a child. She's a witness. We met again that night in my car. Rain lashed the windshield. I was shaking, and I didn't know if it was fear or rage. You said you had more, I told her. You said there were people tied to this. She opened a worn notebook and handed it to me. There's a name you missed. Regina Vale, Price's sister-in-law. She took Mia in after the trial, but she hasn't answered calls in 2 days. You think she ran? I think someone made her disappear. I didn't wait. We drove to Regina's apartment in Queens, lights off, mail stacked at the door. The super said she hadn't been seen since Thursday. Vega kicked in the door. The smell hit us first, something sharp and chemical. Bleach. The apartment was empty, except for a broken picture frame on the floor and an overturned chair in the kitchen. No blood. No signs of a struggle to clean. They sanitized it, Vega said. Then I found it Mia's drawing pad, tucked under the couch. I flipped through it slowly. One page showed a man with red scribbled eyes standing over a woman, lying down, red crayon everywhere. Another page had a figure holding hands with a small girl, but the girl had no face. Vega took photos of everything. We need to find that girl. I think she was trying to tell us who did it, before she vanished. We drove back in silence. My head pounded. I had fought so hard to prove Price's innocence, and now a little girl might pay for my success. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, again, text. You should have stayed silent, counselor. Now you'll find out what real guilt feels like. I stared at the message until it blurred. They knew. I wasn't just a problem anymore, was a target that night. I went back to the warehouse where we met Wells. It was empty, no trace of him, just a burned-out couch and fresh blood smeared on the floor. My phone buzzed again. Another text. Loose ends don't get second chances. I left immediately, heart pounding, back in my apartment. The locks didn't feel strong enough. I closed the blinds, sat with my back to the wall. Vega came by an hour later, gun tucked under her jacket. I can't protect you forever, she said. You want to see this through. We need to move now. We're running out of time. Price is untouchable, I said. He's got money, influence, people cleaning up after him. You want to stop this. Then we stop protecting the system and start exposing it. How? She tossed a flash drive on the table. Crow wasn't the only one keeping records. I dug through private files, financial trails. There's a trust in the Cayman Islands funneling cash to people in the NYPD, to judges, and a city councilman. All linked to Price. And maybe your old firm. I sat back, stunned. You're saying he bought silence from the top? She nodded. He's been doing it for years. And the case you won, it was the crown jewel. I stared at the drive. Everything in my life was on the edge of collapse. Career, reputation, safety. But this wasn't about saving myself anymore. It was about saving whatever piece of me was still worth saving. I need to talk to someone, I said. Who? Someone I should have listened to from the beginning. The next day, I found Mia's school counselor, a woman in her late 40s, kind eyes, voice like calm water. Her name was Mrs. Arlene Greer. She remembered Mia well. She was always afraid to speak too loud, she said, as if someone was always listening. She left drawings, I said. Did she show you anything? Mrs. Greer nodded slowly, unlocking a drawer. She once gave me this. I kept it. I didn't know what to do with it. She handed me a drawing. A house with no roof. A man standing outside with a black cloud over his head, and a girl in the corner, hiding behind a red curtain. Underneath it was a line in shaky letters, "The devil wears daddy's face." My hands trembled. I had to end this. And now I knew exactly where to begin. I spent the night in my office, not my firm's, which had long since disowned me, but a corner room I rented above a bail bondsman's shop. No plaque, no assistants, just me, a corkboard, a stack of documents, and my guilt. I spread everything out: Vega's files, Mia's drawings, the counselor's testimony, the audio clips, wire transfers, court transcripts. I was trying to connect dots that weren't supposed to exist. Because if I could prove a pattern, bribery, obstruction, witness tampering, I could blow the Price case wide open. But a pattern needs one thing more than anything else: a mistake. And Daniel Price didn't make mistakes. Until I remembered something. The alibi Logan Myers gave for Price during the Trailer gas station surveillance tape. I had watched that footage a dozen times. It showed Daniel at a gas pump 2 blocks from the crime. Seen at 10:41 p.m., the prosecution's timeline placed the murder between 10:30 and 10:50 p.m. The tape killed the case, but there was one problem. That gas station had been closed for renovations. I checked the city's construction records. Sure enough, temporary shutdown due to underground tank replacement. The station had no power, no attendants, no functioning cameras, which meant the video was fake. I called Vega. I need that tape reanalyzed, frame by frame. She didn't even ask why, just said, on it. An hour later, she texted, "It's doctored AI overlay on archival footage. Whoever made it was good, but not perfect. There are ghost frames and mismatched time codes." It hit me like ice water. I had walked a jury through that footage like it was gospel. I'd called it unshakable proof. And now it was just a forgery wrapped in my confidence. I dropped my head in my hands. I'd let a murderer off the hook with evidence that wasn't even real. But something still didn't sit right. Why would Price need such an elaborate lie? Unless someone helped him build it. That's when I remembered the name on the forensics report tied to the tape. A digital analyst named Tomas Dervanan, independent contractor hired by my firm during the trial. I found him through a payment records $7,000, wired from an offshore account 3 weeks before the verdict. I paid him a visit. His apartment was small, cluttered with tech gear, monitors stacked like towers, and wires coiled across the floor like vines. He opened the door wearing sweatpants and a guilty expression. "Mr. Carter," he said, clearly startled. "Didn't expect. I bet you didn't," I said. "Let's talk about the gas station footage." He swallowed hard. "What about it? I know it was fake. I know you doctored it. What I don't know is who paid you to do it." He hesitated, then whispered, "They said, if I didn't help, I'd end up like the girl. Mia." He shook his head. "No, her mum. The scene wasn't clean. You know that, right? It wasn't rage. It was surgical, controlled, like it was planned, rehearsed. I stepped closer. You know who did it. He looked like he was going to speak, and then his window shattered. A single shot. The bullet hit him before I could react. Blood sprayed the monitor behind him. His body dropped with a wet thud. I hit the floor, crawled out of sight, pulled my burner phone, and called Vega. He's dead, I whispered. Sniper, window shot, where? Midtown, 47th, and Halberd, 3rd floor. I'm on my way, get out. I ran down the fire escape, heart pounding like it might give out. Every alley felt like a trap. Every shadow looked like it was watching me. Whoever Price had on his payroll, they were trained, precise, unafraid of killing back. Back in my apartment, I locked everything again, triple-checked the doors, sat with my back to the wall, eyes on the door, listening for footsteps that might never come. Vega showed up 30 minutes later, soaked from the rain. She dropped her jacket on the floor and said, "We need to disappear." "I'm not running, you're not running," she said, "but you're not ready to fight either." I handed her the blood-spattered flash drive from Tomas's apartment. "This proves he doctored the footage. That alone is enough to reopen the case again." Vega took it, studying my face. "You want to bring this to the DA?" I shook my head. "Not yet. We need one more thing." "What?" "A confession." Vega raised an eyebrow. "Price isn't going to confess. Not unless he's backed into a corner so tight he can't breathe. Then we corner him." We sat in silence for a long time. She finally said, "He's having a private fundraiser tomorrow night, hosted at the Carrington Hotel." Invitationally, I blinked. "How do you know that?" She smirked. "You're not the only one who used to have connections." I nodded. "Get us in." She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "You want to confront him in a room full of his allies?" "No," I said. "I want to expose him in a room full of his allies." Her eyes narrowed. "You planning to wear a wire?" "No," I said, my voice low. "I'm planning to wear a mic, a camera, and a lie." She tilted her head. "What kind of lie?" "One he can't resist believing." The Carrington Hotel gleamed like an untouched crime scene, clean, elegant, hiding its filth under chandeliers and champagne. Every powerful person in the city seemed to orbit the fundraiser. Councilmen, judges, CEOs, police brass, all in one room, all dressed to pretend. And at the center of it all stood Daniel Price, smiling, toasting, charming, like he hadn't ordered the mother of his child to be erased. I walked in beside Vega, both of us dressed to kill. Literally, if necessary. She wore a black satin gown with a camera pinned in a brooch at her chest. I wore a lapel mic taped under my tie. Every step we took toward him felt heavier. He spotted me before I was ready. "Eli," he called, waving me over with a bourbon in hand. "Didn't expect to see you here. Thought you were taking a break from the spotlight." I smiled tightly, just couldn't resist the guest list. He chuckled, clinking glasses with a judge I recognized from the bench. Then his eyes flicked to Vega. "He didn't know her, friend of yours?" I nodded. "Investor. Private security. She specializes in discreet transitions." He tilted his head, intrigued. "Transitions?" "I'm thinking of leaving the country," I said, voice low. "Too many eyes now. Too many whispers. I figure a man like you might understand." He raised an eyebrow, suddenly cautious. "This isn't like..." "You know," I agreed. "But neither is betrayal." I pulled a small envelope from my inside pocket and handed it to him. Inside was a doctored image, a transfer receipt showing price wiring, $100,000 to an untraceable account in the Caymans dated 2 days before the murder. It was fake, completely fabricated by Vega's tech team, but he didn't know that. "What is this?" he asked, trying to sound amused, but his grip on the envelope tightened. "A leak," I said, "from someone close to your camp. Might hit the news next week, or tomorrow." His smile dropped. "What do you want?" "Insurance." I replied, "You walk, I walk. I leave the country. You don't come after me. No more bodies, no more threats." He studied me. Then he smiled again, but this one was colder. "You always were smart, Eli. Always 2 steps ahead. That's why I chose. You chose me. You think I just picked any defense lawyer," he said, laughing softly. "I watched you. I knew you could argue a rock into confessing. You made the jury love me. You sold innocence better than anyone I've ever seen." Didn't blink. "And your wife?" I asked. He shrugged. "Collateral. She talked too much." Vega's fingers tightened around her clutch. I stepped in before she could explode. "And Mia?" I asked, voice quiet. His eyes turned sharp. "Mia is fine," where he leaned in, whispering, "Safer than you are right now." I nodded. Slowly, "You should go now, Eli," he said, "before the room remembers you're not on their side anymore." We turned and walked away, steady, measured, casual until we hit the service corridor. Vega's hand trembled as she turned off the camera feed. "You got all that?" I asked. She nodded, breathless. "Every word. We got him." We left the hotel through the back, into the alley where our contact from the DAS office was, waiting with a secure laptop. We uploaded the footage, and 15 minutes later, we sent it to 3 places: Assistant District Attorney Harper Nguyen, the New York Herald, and a secure folder titled "If I Die Tomorrow." By morning, it had gone viral. Price caught confessing at elite fundraiser launches arrest warrant. Judges recused themselves. Donors panicked. Stockholders bailed. Price didn't answer his door when they came, because he was already gone. We met with Harper later that day. She wasn't smiling. This should have been airtight, she said, throwing a printed screenshot on the table. It was Price, boarding a private jet 2 hours before the footage aired. "You had him confessing on tape," I argued. "What more did you need?" "A body," she replied. "A location. Proof of the girl's safety. Without Mia or a confirmed murder weapon, he can stall extradition. Hell, he might vanish completely." Vega leaned forward. "We find the girl. That's how we bury him." Nguyen shook her head. "She could be anywhere. We've got nothing." "No," I said. "We have one thing. The man who made people disappear, Crow." "No," I said slowly. "The cleaner Price used before Crow. The man," Vega said, "vanished after the murder Carter Wells." "He's dead," Vega said. "We found blood at the warehouse." "No body," I corrected. "Just blood." She blinked. "You think he's alive?" "I think Price tried to silence him and failed. We didn't sleep that night. We chased every clue we had left." Wells had a sister, a former medic in upstate New York. We drove 5 hours through rain and fog and found her and found him. He was alive, pale, injured, but alive. Wells stared at me from the shadows of his sister's cabin. "You came all this way just to die, counselor?" I smiled. "Not yet." Then I showed him the video, Price laughing, confessing. daring the world to catch him. Wells sat down, slow. "He's worse than I thought," he muttered. "He's not done," I said. "Mia's still out there, and we think you know where." He didn't speak for a while. Then he whispered, "He sent her to a compound, out west. Not guarded, just hidden. She's with someone who won't ask questions. But I can take you there." Vega looked at me. I nodded. "We go tonight, because now this wasn't about justice anymore. This was about saving a child, and maybe, just maybe, redeeming what little was left of my soul." The road felt endless. Wells drove a battered SUV through the Nevada desert, the headlights cutting across sand and sagebrush, like we were chasing ghosts. Vega sat in the back, double-checking her weapons and reloading a small Glock. I rode up front, staring ahead, jaw clenched, heart loud. "How far?" I asked. Wells didn't take his eyes off the road. "Couple more hours. The place is off-grid. Price had it built for disappearances. Fake names, cash-only deliveries, satellite-blocking walls." "And Mia?" Vega asked. "How long's she been there?" "Since the trial," he replied. "They said it was just until things cooled down. But I heard the man they left her with, he's not gentle." My stomach turned. Vega's voice cut like steel. "Then we go in clean and we get her out. No mistakes." Wells glanced at me. "You ready for this, lawyer?" "I'm not a lawyer anymore." We drove in silence after that. By sunrise, we reached it. A squat concrete house surrounded by scrubland and a makeshift fence topped with coiled wire. There were no signs, no driveway, no power lines. It looked like a forgotten bunker from a lost war. Wells stopped 100 yards out. "He'll have cameras. I'll draw him out from the back. You to go in when you hear the gunshot." "You?" "Sure," I asked. He nodded. "It's the only way." He disappeared into the brush, and we waited. I could feel Vega's tension from 2 feet away. She handed me a small radio. "You stay behind me. If I go down, you keep moving. I'm not leaving you." She didn't argue, but she didn't agree either. Then came the shot. We moved. The front door was unlocked. Dusty light spilled through the cracks. The place smelled like gasoline and rotten meat. Inside, a single hallway led to 3 doors. One to the left, one to the right. One at the end. We checked left first. Empty room bed chair. A pile of burned clothes. Right storage, tools, chains, stained rope. Then the last door. Vega raised her gun and slowly pushed it open. Inside was a girl sitting on a mattress, Mia. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her hair was tangled, her eyes hollow. "Mia," I whispered, "it's okay. We're here to take you home." She stared at me, then blinked, confused. "You're the lawyer," she said. I nodded. "Not anymore." She looked past me to Vega. "Where's the man?" I turned just in time to hear the footsteps. He came from the shadows behind us at all. Muscular man with a rifle slung over his shoulder and a scar down one cheek. No warning, no words, just a swing. I barely ducked. Vega fired, missed. He shoved her against the wall and reached for Mia. That's when Wells came through the window. He hit the man like a truck, and they both went down hard. Fists, blood, gunshots, cracking the air. Vega grabbed Mia and pulled her into the hallway. "Go," I shouted, grabbing the man's rifle and swinging it like a club. He caught my wrist mid-swing and grinned. "Price sends his regards." Then Wells shoved a knife into his side. The man gasped, fell dead. We didn't wait out the door. into the SUV, dust rising behind us as we drove like hell. Mia sat between Vega and me in the back seat, holding Vega's hand. Her face was pale, her lips trembling. "Is he gone?" she asked. "Yes," Vega whispered. "He'll never touch you again." Back in the nearest town, we found a safe house through Harper Nugent's emergency contact, an unlisted motel room, with a new identity waiting for Mia under protective custody. When Harper arrived by private flight that evening, she took Mia into state care immediately. Her first words, "You've done enough, Eli. We'll take it from here." But I wasn't done, because, as we watched Mia leave finally, safe, I realized something. Daniel Price wasn't just running anymore. He was planning something else, and he still had allies. Vega knew it too. As we stood in the empty motel lot, she turned to me. "You feel it, don't you?" she asked. I nodded. "This doesn't end until he does." We returned to New York the next morning. The city was louder, colder. Reporters swarmed the courthouse where the new trial was already being prepped. With Mia alive and a full confession captured on tape, the DA's office had enough to issue international pursuit orders. Interpol.FBI.private recovery teams. Still, no one could find Daniel Price. It was like he had never existed, until the letter came. It was hand-delivered to my door, no return address, no fingerprints, just my name on the front dot inside. One sentence written in clean, looping script. "Justice is just a word until someone bleeds for it. Your turn, counselor." Attached was a photo of Vega tied to a chair, bleeding eyes open, and behind her, Daniel Price, smiling. The photo burned into my mind like a scar I couldn't scrub away. Vega, bound, bloodied, silent. Behind her, Daniel Price, alive and watching. The police said it could be fake, a digital manipulation. But I knew better. Her eyes were too real, and so was the look in his. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was inviting me. I paced my apartment like a trapped animal. The letter had no return address, no clues except for one thing. The edge of the photo had a watermark barely visible, but there. Coleman Storage, Pier 9. A location he wanted a final act. I packed quickly, no suit, no tie, just black clothes. Steel nerves and a wire tucked under my jacket, linked to a private channel Nguyen arranged with an FBI unit. They insisted on sending backup, but I refused. If I don't walk in alone, I told them, he won't show her at all. Nguyen stared at me through the screen, cold and calm. "If you die in there," Price walks again. "You understand that. I'm not planning to die." But I wasn't sure I was planning to live either. I drove through the city like I was already. Underwater, everything felt muted, distant, like the world had slowed down for one last confession. Pier 9 was half-abandoned old warehouses, rotting under the weight of salt and secrets. Coleman Storage stood at the end, 3 stories high, its windows shattered. Its door, chained except for one side entrance, wide open. I stepped through, every part of me tense. The inside smelled like mold, gasoline, and something coppery. Blood. A single hanging bulb lit the room. And there she was, Vega, still tied, breathing but barely. Blood matted her hair. A gash ran down her left arm. One of her eyes was swollen shut. I moved to her, hands up, voice low. "It's me. I'm here." Footsteps echoed behind me. Touch her, and I pull the trigger. I froze. Daniel Price stepped from the shadows, gun in hand, suit pressed, eyes hollow. "Hello, counselor," he said, like we were old friends. "You've run out of places to hide." He chuckled. "Have I? Or have I just proven how broken your system really is?" I glanced at Vega. She blinked once slow. "Still aware? I have your confession. I have Mia. I have your cleaner, your tape, your lies. It's over." "Then why are you here?" he asked. "Why risk everything to come alone?" "Because she matters," I said. "She believed in me when I didn't. When I was defending you," he nodded thoughtfully. "She's strong. I respected her. I still do, which is why I'll give you a choice." He held up a small detonator. "One button, rigged under her chair. Press it, and she's gone. Or," he threw a revolver on the floor, "you take that gun, use one bullet on yourself, and she walks." My blood turned to ice. "This is your idea of justice?" I asked. He smiled. "This is balance. I gave you your career. You gave me freedom. Now I take it back, unless you give me something first." I glanced at the gun, then at Vega. "No." She whispered, "Eli, don't you wanted a trial?" I said. "Fine, let's have one." I stepped toward the gun slowly. Price watched, intrigued. I knelt, lifted the revolver, held it, then aimed it straight at him. He laughed. "You won't make it? You shoot." I pressed the crack. One shot, right through his shoulder. He screamed and dropped the detonator before he could reach it. Vega kicked the chair back, crushing it under her. I rushed in, ripped the wires off, and kicked the detonator across the floor. Then I turned to Price. He crawled, blood pouring from his arm. "You're not walking away this time," I said. Sirens wailed in the distance. The feds had traced the signal. "You think this changes anything?" he hissed. "The system will bury it. They always do." "Not anymore," I said, "because you made it personal." 2 months later, Daniel Price was on trial again. This time, there were no loopholes, no doctored tapes, no bought judges. Just facts, audio, video, witnesses. Mia testified, calm and clear. Wells gave his account face to face with Price in court, and I watched from the gallery. I wasn't a lawyer anymore, but I was something else now. A man trying to make peace with the weight of his choices. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, the courtroom erupted. But I didn't cheer. I looked at Vega, sitting beside me, arms still bandaged, jaw clenched. She leaned in and whispered, "We got him." I nodded, but I knew the truth. We hadn't just taken down a killer. We'd confronted the system that created him, and we'd walked through it, bruised but not broken. I stepped outside into the sunlight. It felt warmer than I remembered. Someone asked if I was going back into law. I just smiled. "No," I said. "I won the case, but I lost my soul." I paused, "and maybe now I'm just trying to earn it back."